Okay, I think we're good. Is my screen up there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome. Today, we're happy to have Fred Johnson presenting on the achievement-based resume. He is the president of Changing Paradigms Consulting and also the facilitator of the Path Group at Compass Church, of which I've had the honor of presenting a couple times since he's taken over and building that group as well. I am the manager of Job Seeker and Veterans Services, putting on the workshops. Also on the call today are Siobhan Morris and Jennifer Wigeman. They're the workshop facilitators. If you are new to WorkNet DuPage, every Tuesday we have From Layoff to Launch. It'll talk about how you may qualify for grants up to $10,000, continue to receive unemployment benefits and don't pay it back. The only thing we need is just job info. Our goal is that you get a job. It's every Tuesday, 9:30. You can go to worknetdupage.org and you can sign up for From Layoff to Launch. That's every Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Okay. Zoom etiquette. Of course, no hostile or angry comments, nothing objectable. We are going to be using the chat room today to communicate with the panelists, hosts, and also we're going to use the chat for questions. So you can see in the blue down here, I have quotations. Start off your question with the word question or just the question mark. That will catch my eye, and then I will let Fred know, and then we will, I'll put the question out there for Fred to answer. Okay. Please let us know when you get a new job. Our grant is based on people finding jobs. And we have to report to Congress. And some of the metrics are, if 70% of the people get jobs, we get to keep the grant. On my over 25 years here, we've always made that metric. If we make 80% of the people get jobs, we get additional funding called incentive money so we can serve more of the public. So you can see on the slide here, I have Pay It Forward. We are all able to provide these services today because people in the past. So keep in contact with your counselors. Please let me know if you find a job. If you've been to any of my seminars, you know I love telling stories about people who've been in the trenches and have found opportunities. So please let us know that, and your salary and things like that. Ironic, because I was talking with Fred just before here in our year in review. He was very impressed with it. We actually sent that to Senator Duckworth, who was very impressed and said this is excellent timing because right now this grant is up for discussion in Congress. So, you know, inside the Beltway there, they really don't know what's happening on the ground. So that's why we provide this feedback to them, is to let them know, here's what's happening, here's the grant, it is working, it's helping people get back into work. So with that, I am going to stop my share, and I am going to allow you, Fred, to go ahead. Can you share? Oh.
I believe we should be up and running.
There you are. Okay.
Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. And it is truly my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about a topic that I think is near and dear to all of us, and that is the achievement-based resume. Now, I do want to begin this presentation, and it is a presentation, but it's also designed to be a dialogue and not a monologue. So the warning is this: audience participation will be required. So you now have been duly warned. So I'd like to begin this discussion with a question. What do all of these documents have in common? A subpoena, a letter from the IRS or your attorney, a physician report, maybe a report card, and your resume. So if you would be kind enough to kind of give me your first impression as to what do all of these documents have in common. Jim, I'll ask you to kind of read me some of the feedback you get.
Will do. Okay, they cause fear.
Yeah.
State a position. Something about oneself, things written with a purpose. They all have information about you. Dread, fear, horror, yuck. Hold the person accountable. Let's see what else. Paint a picture of you. It's about a person. Gives a status. It's stressful, official. Your name, have facts, formal documents, personal info. They are all official. And I think that's...
You know, Jim, all of those are great answers, and I'm going to take a couple of them and add it to this presentation. But I think what all of those words and documents have in common is they elicit an emotional response, all from anxiety, frustration, fear, depression, stress. But I would submit to you, of those documents, resumes probably top the list. And again, I think if we were to ask the question, I won't, how many people really feel confident with their resume today? I don't know the level of responses that we would get that would be extremely positive. So I'd like to make a couple of comments first and foremost. What a resume truly is. The resume is a marketing tool. That's all it really is. It communicates your brand. It highlights your value-adding attributes. It reflects your communication skills and abilities. It provides a snapshot of your professional experiences, and it illustrates your abilities and accomplishments and highlights, of course, your educational achievements, skills, certifications, and associations. That's what a resume is. And what is the goal of the resume? The primary goal or objective is to secure an interview. That's all that piece of paper is designed to do. Yet it creates so much fear and anxiety in most people's lives when we talk to job seekers who are constantly changing and angsting over their resume. So we know that there are multiple sources for resume assistance. They can either be through professional certified resume writers, thousands of books about resumes, but what is the right resume? I believe the right resume is the one that gets the interview. It's pretty simple. So from a resume component standpoint, when we look at a typical resume, there's usually a header, what you do, a professional profile, your competencies and capabilities, your experience and expertise, your education, your technical skills, your affiliations, awards, and achievements. But today, I'd really like to hone in on the experience and expertise part of your resume. So now I want to ask the question to the group. Do you believe and do you feel your resume, your current resume, communicates your true value? You would either put a yes or no answer, or a maybe, or I really don't know. Put it in the chat box, and Jim, let's see what kind of percentages we get.
Okay, we get oh, no, not at the moment, partially yes. Why, no, yes, maybe, yes, not for sure, could be better, no, somewhat. Whew, it's going fast here. A lot of no's, some yeses, maybe, I think so, don't know, pretty good, questionable, maybe, yes. Don't think it gives a look at my full potential. I believe it does, but always open to improvement. It's always pending. Okay. I think that's the bulk of everyone.
Well, it sounds to me like there's a lot of people that really don't know whether their resume communicates their value. Is that a safe assessment from your figures, Jim?
I would say so.
I would say, well, then this topic I hope is right on target. And by the time we're through, I hope that we can truly create your resume that really does communicate your value to prospective employers. So the first and foremost thing is, as I said, I really want to focus on your experience, but I believe resume formats are very important as long as they truly illustrate your achievements and accomplishments. It is absolutely critical to the success of today's job seekers. Creating differentiation is absolutely essential. How do you stand out? At Coca-Cola, we used to call it special, different, and better. And I think in today's crowded job market, it is very, very important that you are able to stand out. Highlighting your professional accomplishments and or achievements is really critical to establishing that point of differentiation. Adding examples of significant accomplishments highlights your best skills. And meaningful accomplishments, and the word here that you need to focus on is meaningful, demonstrate to hiring managers that you have the skills necessary for their job and are able to do it successfully. So what are accomplishments and why are they important? Well, if you think about it, hiring managers are really looking for individuals that have demonstrated success and can add value to their organizations. We're going to talk a little bit about what value means to an employer in a few more slides, because I think it's really important to really understand what do they mean when they say, I want someone that can add value to my business. But in the interim, let's talk about what are accomplishments. Well, first and foremost, they're very specific. They state concrete actions and results. They increase a reader's interest and help you sell yourself to an employer, resulting in a potential interview. It is the hope and intent of a resume that someone will review it and look at your accomplishments and say, we need to bring that individual in to begin the interview process. We want to learn more about this person who's demonstrated success. And the only way that success can be illustrated is, of course, in your resume. Accomplishments should highlight and reinforce your best skills. We all know what skills are. We all know what job scan. We all know the ATS system, but your accomplishments need to highlight those key skills for your location or position. They should be quantifiable and measurable. They are much more meaningful than just merely talking about what you did or the activities or role you played in an organization. Accomplishments are different from abilities, duties, or strengths. Abilities are what you can do. Duties are what you have done, and strengths are what you do well. It's very important to distinguish between accomplishments or abilities, duties, and strengths, because again, there's a big difference between accomplishments and activities. Accomplishments should also be very defensible and defined during the interview process. I think we're all familiar with the term STAR, which basically is an acronym for how you describe or define your accomplishments in an interview. And simply stated, it's define or talk about the situation, the task, the action you employed, and the result you garnered as a result of your actions. I know that many companies will tell candidates before they come to an interview, they use and suggest that a STAR methodology be utilized to address interview questions. I know that Coca-Cola has done that for many, many years. And this is how they evaluate candidates. So your accomplishments that you write on that piece of paper, on that marketing document, should be defensible, but more importantly, should be the basis for your stories during the interview process. Another reason why accomplishments are critical. So let's get started. And how we're going to get started today is I'd like to talk about how do you define an accomplishment? Number two, where do you find accomplishments? How do you identify them? Number three, we're going to be speaking a little bit about how do you craft a meaningful accomplishment statement, a statement that will get noticed. And more importantly, how do you know if what you have is really an accomplishment statement or merely an activity? I call it the so what validation. We're going to talk about these things to talk about, more importantly, how you can make your resume more of an achievement-based resume. And if you have any questions, please jot them down in the chat. And Jim, if there are questions, I'll try to stop a little bit. We'll have some opportunities to do that. Or Jim, go ahead and pleasantly interrupt me. I want to make sure we answer everyone's questions so that we can make certain after this meeting today, everyone can get started on making certain their resume truly communicates their value. So let's talk a little bit about
Fred, as you start here, Elena asks, what if you don't know or remember the quantifiable aspects of results?
We're going to talk about that in the course of this discussion. I would just as soon wait till we get to the slide because I've got about 4 or 5 different points that someone could go to start that discovery process.
Okay.
I don't want to get ahead of myself too much. All right. So let's talk about what is an accomplishment, activity and duty. Well, as I said earlier, duty describes what you did and an accomplishment describes how well you did it. Accomplishments are the things you did in a job which made a positive impact and contribution to your employer's business. For example, planned events would be considered a job duty, whereas raised $100,000 by selling out tickets to a 200-person charity event would truly be an accomplishment. There is a difference. One describes the duty or the rule. I planned events. The other has a little bit more meat on the bones. The fact is, it showed the value of your planning events by raising $100,000 and, more importantly, to a 200-person charity event. This shows the size and scope of your accomplishment and truly stands out. The skills and knowledge to perform your everyday work or duties really do not count as accomplishments unless you can demonstrate specifically how you use them to benefit your employer. For the most part, hiring managers will understand what duties are associated with your job titles. Accomplishments paint a picture of your abilities that will enable you to sell yourself more effectively. So how do you get started? Well, the first thing, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and make a list. What should that list be comprised of? Let's talk about that now. As I said earlier, recruiters and HR managers want to see that you produce results in a competitive marketplace. It's all about results. So take a sheet of paper, list examples in your career where you have increased revenue, saved the company money, enhanced team productivity, or solved a problem. Don't use stories or paragraphs on your resume. Instead, of course, use easy to read bullets. But you start with making a list of those areas, those key areas where you can show significant value, where you've either increased the revenue, saved the company money, solved the problem, or enhanced team productivity. That's a great place to get started in writing your accomplishments. So how do you identify them? Well, you can look at the skills and previous job duties one by one. As you go through them, ask yourself, what positive difference did I make while I was doing that particular activity? Review work-related feedback. You've been given, including positive comments and praise during your career, whether it be in a formal performance review. Look back at your old performance reviews to find areas of accomplishment. They can be a very, very wealth of knowledge to go back, because sometimes it's very difficult to go back 8, 10 years to understand exactly what was that accomplishment. You may have forgotten. So again, looking back at your past performance reviews, if you save them, is a very, very good tool or source of information. You can also get input from colleagues and friends or even previous employers about your accomplishments. This might be another way to quantify and identify measurable results, maybe by talking to a colleague. Do you remember the time when we worked on that project? Do you remember what the overall value of that project might have been? What did we save? Can you give me that information? That's all information that can help you write your measurable accomplishment statement. Asking someone else to make an objective assessment of why you are particularly good at your job is also likely to reveal things that you may not have thought about. It may also help you quantify the difference you made. So, where do we go, or what do we do to find accomplishments? Well, if you've exceeded targets or key performance indicators in your previous jobs, that would certainly be an area to start building an accomplishment statement. Maybe you reorganized a system to make it work more efficiently. You saved man hours. You shortened the time from concept to completion. Or possibly you were able to reduce man hours because of a system reorganization idea that you had. Making things more efficient can be very much part of your accomplishment statement, especially if you can add measurable results. Maybe achieve measurable outcomes that add value to the company. Maybe it was something you did outside of the normal job responsibilities. Maybe you trained, inducted, or coached new staff members, whether they be 1, 2, 40. Always put the number in because, again, it shows size and scope of your accomplishment. Maybe you save time or money for the company. Maybe you actively contributed on team projects. Just because you participated on a team doesn't mean there wasn't an accomplishment that you can share. Maybe you contributed to outstanding customer service. A lot of companies measure customer satisfaction, which is a very important part of their business. And maybe you've done something along your career to enable outstanding customer service. Or you identified a problem and resolved it. That's probably the easiest accomplishment. And then putting numbers around that make it even more meaningful. Maybe you increased the loyalty or satisfaction of existing customers. Possibly you were in IT and you worked on the web, and all of a sudden the clicks increased from X to Y because of your efforts in upgrading and updating the messaging on a website. Maybe you solved a problem, whether it be decreasing customer complaints. Accomplishments are not always revenue related. Maybe you saved money. You negotiated a better deal from a supplier. You know what that savings was. Or you saved time. Maybe you developed an idea, a suggestion that your employer acted upon, and maybe you received some form of recognition for that. Maybe you launched a new product or project or initiated an initiative. If you were a project manager, clearly you may have implemented a project that came in on time and under budget, saving the company X. Maybe you increased the company's press coverage or market recognition. Or maybe you've just gone above and beyond your normal activities and duties to achieve an objective. All of these potentially could be accomplishments that are in your career that maybe you haven't thought about. But as you draw your list, these are the things you need to be identified. And of course, the obvious one, consistently met or exceeded goals and or quotas. I think a common mistake that a lot of people think about is that, well, I wasn't in sales, so therefore I really don't have anything I can measure. I really don't know those numbers. Sales are important, but there are many other ways to make a positive difference. We've gone through some of those, so don't be tempted to think that you didn't make an impact just because you weren't in sales. Now, here's some other areas you might think about as you draw your list together. Maybe highlighting something you initiated voluntarily. recruiters and employers are always looking for innovators and self-starters. In short, they're seeking employees that go over and above, thus bringing value to the employing company. As you know, most employers probably don't want someone that needs to be micromanaged. So highlighting something you initiated voluntarily really makes a great deal of sense and shows the value you bring to the company. If you might have secured new business independently, have you mentored other team members without being instructed? These are all great examples of illustrating how you achieve results on your own. We talked a little bit about what if you serve on a team? How do you identify a team accomplishment? Well, if some of your best results were achieved as part of a team, you could certainly include them as an accomplishment. For example, I was a member of a high-performing team which won the Regional Support Award last year, and maybe you might want to add by achieving what? Greater sales, greater productivity, something that gives meat to this accomplishment. Highlighting team performance demonstrates that you are a team player. And most employers that I know of are looking for team builders and team players. And of course, for maximum results, always make certain you put in results. I won an award for 2020. That's great. Why did they award you that acknowledgement and recognition? That's what people are interested in learning about. That demonstrates the value you might bring to your next employer. The fact you won an award or were recognized by management, that's good, but it's much more appealing and compelling if you could explain the results that earned you or made you eligible for that award. Now here's a great acronym. It seems in a job search or career transition environment, we all tend to utilize a lot of acronyms. So this is an acronym. If you're a golfer, you might appreciate this, but it's called PAR. And this methodology might help you define your accomplishments. And PAR stands for Problem, Action, Results. It's very similar to STAR, but STAR is really utilized during the interview. PAR is utilized during the accomplishment definition. So, problem. What was the problem or situation or challenge you were being challenged or tasked with? What was the action or what you did to solve that problem or improve the situation? And of course, result, what was the outcome? Where possible, include percentages, dollar figures are preferred, numbers. Once you have completed your PARs, confirm those statements into bullet points. The most effective approach is to phrase each point as action and result, with some slight integration of the problem and utilizing action verbs as necessary. That's how you write an accomplishment statement. Give me an example. A PAR might be a disorganized and inefficient warehouse. That was the problem. The action that I took, I redesigned the layout to improve the organization. The result, I saved the company $175,000 in recovered stock. Once I have my PARs identified, I now can weave them into a statement. And again, action, result. Did this, it resulted in that. That's the best way to really remind yourself of how to write an accomplishment statement. PAR, problem, action, result. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, let's go through them.
Sure, we got a few, huh?
Yes, we do.
Uh-oh.
So Joe asks, what if you are changing careers and your accomplishments do not match the new career?
Well, I would tell you that your accomplishments of earning revenue, saving money, solving problems, I think almost can go with any industry today. Again, your accomplishments that reflect those abilities to make money, save money, solve problems are pretty universal. I think that's what employers are looking for. Employees that know how to add value, regardless really of the industry or field they're in. Obviously, if you were in the same industry, that would be a plus, because then an employer could look at the learning curve. But I would say that the idea of solving problems, making money, saving money are pretty universal.
Okay, Sherry has a couple questions. First one is, how do you put in a new certification like a PMP to show that it was recent, but not to have to put the rest of your years when finished school, like when college was a long time ago?
Right. Well, again, this is a little bit outside of the realm of experience and expertise, but again, that's part of the resume. My recommendation, if you have secured your PMP, those three members of the alphabet probably should be at the top of your resume after your name, and certainly under your certification. And I don't think it's necessary to have the year when you got your PMP. You certainly don't need to put the years of your college graduation.
What I recommend is if you just got your PMP and you went to school or we funded you, is just call it professional development, what the school was, and that you got the PMP. And that's before your work history. And I do put the year because it just, what have you been doing since you've been laid off? So, everyone does it differently. But so you have it up front and you have your education at the end, and no one's going to look, my opinion.
Yeah.
Like resumes, everyone's got opinions, eh?
No, listen, if you ask 15 different people, you'll get 15 different responses. But again, as I said, the only purpose is to get the interview. So I would suggest that, you take what you learn and you apply it, and it's like fishing. If it doesn't work and it's not getting you the interviews, maybe it's time to check the bait.
Yeah. Okay, another one. How do you put in accomplishments when what you did was proprietary or classified to the company?
Well, it depends on the type of accomplishment you're referencing. Obviously, if it's revenue, that could be proprietary. If it's a publicly held company, that would be in your annual reports. It could be. If it is savings of man hours, that can be re-engineered through reverse engineering. There are a lot of ways I believe you can identify savings, maybe not revenue generation, maybe you supported sales, and maybe the sales effort was selling AT&T a system valued at $3 million. That's probably not proprietary, and again, by demonstrating the size and scope of your accomplishment or your contributions is equally as meaningful as I saved the company $10 million. Again, it is a challenge, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's not easy to come up with defined accomplishments for each and every accomplishment statement. But I think the more that you have, the better well received your resume will be and stand out amongst other resumes. Because if it's only talking about job activities or roles, that really doesn't tell me why I should pick you over, the other 300 people that have submitted a resume that may have done the same thing that you have. You have to figure out a way to stand out, and measurable accomplishments are the way to do that. So it does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of investigative efforts, but they can be found. And we're going to share a couple of them with you, but it is a challenge. There's no question about it. I want to be fully transparent when I say it's not easy. And especially if you have to go back 8 to 9 years and you may not have remembered or have information on that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Fred. It's very difficult to go back, but I found that writing them out is very helpful. And I was told you got to figure out some accomplishments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I've heard too many times, Jim, the story, well, I was on a project management team and that really wasn't shared with us. Yet project management teams start with a beginning and they have an objective and they have milestones. So if you know you're going towards an objective, that's usually a number. And that certainly is something that you can add. But I will also say that from an accomplishment standpoint, it is absolutely critical, I believe, to stand out from everyone else. Because if you think about it, what's really going to differentiate you from every other project manager, IT engineer out there? You all worked on the same platforms. That's terrific. What did you do specifically to add value, reduce cost, solve a problem, or improve customer satisfaction? All of those things will separate you from the rest.
You know, it's interesting that we're talking about this because a day or two ago, I reviewed a resume of someone who just had all of these numbers all over. I mean, she really worked on it, from the scope of the project, how many millions of dollars, to the number of staff, to timelines, and things like that. So you have it, and I really believe what Fred's talking about is you got to write it down. And I know there's questions in here about other examples. We'll talk, I think Fred's got other examples he mentioned. Let's see, gaps in employment, how do you address that? I just address it. Is it reasonable to work in non-professional accomplishments from personal experience? Okay.
Give me an example. Whoever wrote that, can you unmute them and let's hear it from them?
It doesn't give me a name.
Uh-oh.
It's from blank to all panelists. I don't know who that is. If you don't put your name, I don't know who you are. Bill, is that you? Let me go here. And I'm looking for the name here.
You know, while you're looking for that, one of the things that you mentioned, Jim, and I think it's very true, it's very difficult to go back and identify measurable accomplishments, 5 years, 3 years, even 6 months. My recommendation to a lot of the people that I work with is I say, today is the start of your new career. And I want you to keep a file, a hanging file, and I want you to put in your performance reviews when you receive them. And I want you to identify those accomplishments that you achieve in your current role moving forward. Write them down now and drop them in the file. At the end of the year, empty that file out and update your accomplishment statements, because that's the only way you can really keep track and stay relevant with good information, is when you do it. So I know it doesn't help people that are trying to look back 5, 6, 10, 15 years, but it certainly would help you moving forward. And I think that each and every one of you will probably be landing soon. And when you do that, it's always good to remember this job search journey that you're currently involved with, so that you're prepared, hopefully not, for the next one. So that's kind of the preventative maintenance program that I offer a lot of job seekers. Start keeping good files of your accomplishments.
I got 2 huge binders. As far as non-professional accomplishments, if I can throw in something here, I knew we have 2 sections. One of our sections works with youth, and this individual wanted to apply for the youth position. Well, he was in the banking industry, so his whole resume is tailored to banking and auditing and things like that. But way down at the bottom, his volunteer experience was heavily active in sports, coaching kids. So I had him rearrange his whole resume to put his volunteer experience first for youth programs. You know, volunteer youth, talking about coaching football, basketball, baseball, whatever it was. And then his work history. On the other hand, if he was applying for a different position, say for a counselor position, then I would tell him, okay, all that volunteer experience you can put at the end, but now I want to know about your ability to counsel people, talk with people, and record case notes and things like that. I think that helps, I hope, of how you have to flip your resume to the position that you're going for and the industry. Same with nonprofits. Your nonprofit experience should be up front.
Yeah, and I think realistically, when you look at those experiences, Jim, they're looking for the keys, like for coaching, obviously, and a lot of companies are looking for coaching and mentoring skills. You'll see that probably in a lot of the job roles that are published. People are looking for coaches, and especially in social services like you're referencing, those are pretty critical components and areas of skills that employers in nonprofits and organizations like that are looking for. So yeah, I would certainly highlight that because it reflects what you've done in those key areas that the employer is looking for.
Okay. Just a lot of comments in here on how people keep track of self-assessment, Excel tracker. Everyone does it a little bit different.
And I'm sure there's lots of ways to do that. But as I said, if you think about it now and you want to go back 10 years and say, okay, what did that project result in? It might be hard to remember that 10 years ago. All I'm saying is from this day forward, from today, start your file of accomplishments and start just jotting notes down with results and drop it in the file. That will jog your memory. And then just like you do taxes every year, pull that file out and look at it and maybe rewrite a few accomplishment statements. You may not need them, but you'll always have them.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead, Fred.
All right, let's move on if we can to how do you craft the accomplishment statement? How do you write it? How do you make it compelling? How do you make it exciting? How do you make it stand out? Well, the first and foremost is you need to be confident about highlighting your accomplishments. Many people really don't give themselves sufficient credit because they believe it will make them sound arrogant or conceited. Most people, their mamas didn't teach them to talk about themselves. Most of us are in that category. So humility kind of goes out the window a little bit when you're in the job search process. A resume doesn't require humility because recruiters, employers want you to tell them why you are the right fit for the job. You've got to sell yourself. Include awards, recognitions, and any other achievements. Maybe you wouldn't talk about that normally, but narrow down those best choices and write them down in a bullet form. But be confident about highlighting your accomplishments. It's critical. And of course, embracing the use of action verbs, beginning at every sentence to drive attention and effectively illustrate your accomplishments. Anyone can say, worked in accounting. But that really doesn't say anything about what the job entailed. Consider using verbs such as spearheaded, streamlined, led, increased. All of those are action verbs that draw the eye to that accomplishment statement and give you a compelling reason why someone might want to hire you. So for example, if you're looking for just general achievement verbs, how about the terms accomplishment, exceeded, executed, proved, succeeded, motivated? How about problem solving skills? If you want to demonstrate that you're a problem solver, you defined, you diagnosed, you designed, you adapted. All of those action verbs really are telltale signs to job roles and requirements that a lot of employers are seeking. How about if you are management, you're looking at a management position, maybe things and terms like directed, activated, launched, planned, motivated. Those are all action verbs that can help your achievement statements take legs and grow. Or if you're into the analysis, you're a business analyst, you consulted, you advised, you diagnosed, you examined, you identified. All of those action verbs will help your accomplishment statements truly stand out. And I would encourage you, when you go through your resume, look at the very first word on every accomplishment statement and does it want you to do something? Does it make you want to read on? Is it an action verb or is it just kind of a dull sentence. Now, accomplishment statements should illustrate your value. That was the question I asked at the outset. How many of you believe your resume illustrates and communicates your value? Your accomplishment statements will do that. So let's talk about that word value. Often overused, but what does it really mean? Well, from a prospective employer's position, what do they mean when they say, I'm looking for people that can add value to my business? First and foremost, they're looking for people that make me money. Most employers are looking for someone that's going to enhance their revenue streams. Save me money. Everyone's looking for cost containment, especially in these days. Employers are looking for people that can help them reduce their costs. So make money, save money, solve a problem. Every business has some problem. There's not a business, or whether it be a nonprofit or organization, that doesn't have challenges and needs or problems. Employers are looking for employees who have either experienced something similar or have the ability and competency and capability to solve a problem. And of course, there's a fourth. This isn't really one that's stated clearly. But if I'm an employer and I'm hiring you, I want you to make me look good. And what I mean by that is very simply this. If I hire a person and that person turns out not to be what I expected them to be and doesn't do very well, it's a reflection on me. I'm the one that recommended, I'm the one that hired this person, and if he or she fails to perform, who is that a reflection on? Besides the individual, it's a reflection on my management skills. So, what is value to an employer? These are very important to know. And I say that because your accomplishment statements should attempt to solve or address each one of these. Make me money, save me money, solve a problem, and oh, by the way, if I hire you, make me look good. That is value, ladies and gentlemen, and I can assure you that a friend of mine who just recently completed his MBA at Notre Dame spent about 8 weeks talking about value, and when he saw this, he said, this is exactly what we talked about over a period of 8 weeks. So I'll break it down for you easy. Your accomplishment statement should demonstrate how you've made your former employer or employers money. You've either saved them money, solved a problem, and you, by the way, along the way, probably made your boss look pretty good. Adding numbers to your accomplishments are pretty significant and critical. Using quantitative examples that include numbers help portray a clear picture for the person reading your resume. A key question to ask yourself when considering how you deliver results is, by how much? Maybe you increase company revenue. That's an excellent achievement. But if you can explain how much you increased revenue by including numbers and figures that verify your achievement, it becomes more meaningful. It even becomes even more meaningful if you can say, I grew revenues from X to Y in 12 months, versus saying I just merely grew revenue by 10%. I always use the example of, if I told someone that I grew revenues by 400%, they'd be pretty impressed for a while until they discovered that my revenue starting point was $1. Then it's not so impressive. So if you can use dollars or numbers other than percentages, it portrays a far more compelling picture of an accomplishment. And of course, by quantifying accomplishments, you provide a better idea as to the work or responsibility necessary that you implemented to achieve that accomplishment. It just helps an employer reading your resume really understand your value to them. And again, numbers are great, dollars are better, percentages are good. There are a lot of ways in which you can define your accomplishment, but by adding numbers, it means a great deal. Now, I found this to be quite interesting. There is a company called ResiMatch. It's very similar to some of the companies out there that look at job descriptions and scan resumes and looks for keywords. They recently did an analysis of 125,000 plus resumes. And this is not a plug for ResiMatch, although if you wanted to check it out, it might be something you'd be interested in. But they found out of 125,000 resumes, only 26% of those resumes included 5 instances of measurable results, numbers. And 36% of the resumes that were scanned had 0 metrics. So you can see that if you don't have metrics and you're not using numbers, you are truly at a disadvantage, I believe, to those resumes and people utilizing numbers to get noticed. So metrics make accomplishments meaningful. And I think it's really important, especially after this program today, to go back and look at your resume. And that's really what I want you to do and say, do I really have an achievement-based resume? Always include the benefit. You know, each accomplishment besides numbers also must have a benefit derived from your action. By including the benefit, you clearly communicate what you're capable of achieving and the direct benefit to an employer. Remember, make money, save money, solve a problem. By including the benefit, you will effectively sell the tangible things you can bring to the company. For example, let's say that you were responsible for creating 20 client reports each month. That's a good benefit. However, what would happen if you modify that statement to say this? Created and prepared 20 weekly and monthly status reports to ensure clients consistently receive timely and complete information. It's a little bit better. It could become even better if you talked about increasing customer satisfaction. You can build on your accomplishment statement from good, better, best. And I think we need to strive to get to best. Now, I said this earlier and someone asked the question, well, it's proprietary information, I really can't get it. Identifying performance results really can be challenging. It really requires a lot of detective and investigative work on your part. It takes work. Where can you find it? Collaborating with colleagues and associates, maybe colleagues at your former company, maybe even competitors. But talking with them and asking about, hey, do you remember that project we worked on? I'd like to get some more information. Maybe you might have some recollection of that. Published information in the public domain. If you work for a publicly traded company, they have annual reports. You can go on investor sites and pull that information and possibly identify projects that you may have worked on and the value of that project, what it was worth, what did it accomplish. Also, you can find a lot of this information in Cranes would be a good source, or business reviews that often show information on these publicly traded companies that you might be able to use to justify and explain your value. Past performance reviews, we talked about that. Reverse engineering. I think this is pretty valuable. I'll give you an example. When I was at Coca-Cola and we were working with a gentleman that talked about an accomplishment, he said, you know, one of my biggest accomplishments was I was able to sell Speedway convenience stores a summer promotion, and we were able to put 500 cases of product on the driveway for a 6-week period during the months of June through November. That was my biggest accomplishment. And I said, well, that was pretty spectacular. I said, what was a case? Well, he said, you know, a case. I said, no, a case could be a case of cans. It could be a case of bottles. It could be a case of 2 liters. What was the case? Well, it was a case of cans. All right. And you said 500 cases per Speedway location. Yep, that's right. I'm gonna have to get out my calculator, excuse me. So 500 cases, and at the time, Speedway had a total of 1,200 stores. So that 500 cases turned into 600,000 cases of product that were sold. I said, now all of a sudden, that's getting to be big numbers. I said, what was a case cost? Well, you know, it varied because all of the bottlers charge different. I said, I know, but what was the average case cost? Well, about $6 a case. Oh, $6 a case. Now, if I were really quick like Jim, I'd have this number. That's $3.6 million. So that little accomplishment of 500 cases on Speedway turned into an achievement of almost $3.6 million in revenue. That sounds a little bit more compelling than his original statement. So it does take some reverse engineering, and you can do that not just on cases or sales, but let's assume that you saved man hours. Maybe something you've done reduced the time it took to produce a report. And maybe there were 3 people it took to do that report. What was their average salary and benefits and compensation? You don't have to know it, but you can make an educated assumption. And if you save 3 hours a week for 3 people, that's 9 hours a week times their salaries and benefits times 52 weeks. Now all of a sudden you're making that achievement more compelling. So reverse engineering is one way to arrive at numbers. And I would encourage everyone to get out their Inspector Clouseau coat and attempt to start doing some investigative work and help yourself by creating a compelling accomplishment statement. And of course, educated assumptions. It doesn't have to be to the penny. It doesn't have to be the dollar, but it also can't be an exaggeration. So don't embellish some of your accomplishments, like saying, well, I saved the company $1.5 billion because I'm a great guy. It needs to be realistic. But again, I think when you add numbers to an accomplishment statement, they clearly become more compelling. So let's check and see, how do you determine whether or not maybe on your resume you have accomplishment statements? Well, I call this the so what validation process. If your statement of accomplishment fails to illustrate an outcome or provide some form of measurable and quantifiable results, so what? It is mostly an activity or positional responsibility. Now, so what sounds kind of sarcastic, but realistically, if you read a resume and it doesn't address an outcome or provide some form of measurable and quantifiable results, the reader of that resume may say, so what? Let's take a few examples. And these are off resumes that I've looked at in the last 60 days. These are what I consider to be posers, job roles and activities that are posing as accomplishments. I contributed to a cross-functional team as engineering representative within supply chain management for initiatives such as cost improvement and automation. So what? What did your contributions achieve? So what? I performed data analysis and proactively executed product end-of-life strategies to streamline product lines and reduce inventory. That sounds like an accomplishment, is it? So what? How much did you streamline the product and how much inventory reduction? And what was the proactive result? I don't know that. Managed a broad portfolio of client services, including financial, property management, credit analysis, and contract negotiation. Does that sound like an accomplishment, or does that sound more like a job duty or role in a position? I was a team leader for an offshore team, providing ongoing mentoring and escalation support on customer policies, procedures, and tools. Again, so what? Is this an accomplishment, or is it a job description, a job role, a job activity? Produce best-in-class, reliable configuration tools, achieving accurate customer team quoting and sales order creation, and exceeding objectives by consistently managing and delivering tool updates ahead of schedule. Lots of words. Sounds kind of like an accomplishment, but there's no measurable results. What was the outcome? What objectives were exceeded? Again, after reading this, you would ask yourself, so what? Responsible for the administration of the second instance, including managing vendor relationships, value analysis, ordering, delivery, facility preparation, safety of build out of the second instance, acceptance reviews, and successfully meeting the in-production criteria. Boy, after you read that, you need a drink of water, but it sounds to me like a job responsibility. It's in the job description. Is it an accomplishment just because you performed your job? I don't think so. Once again, so what? You're starting to feel the common theme of the so what. And again, I would challenge you each to go through your resumes at the conclusion of this presentation, read through your accomplishment statements, and if the question, so what, is the end result, I would say you probably are describing a job role or activity. Here's the last one. Effectively introduced and used throughout the project risk action items decision log or a RAID log. It doesn't tell me what was the accomplishment of that. It just tells me that you used a project risk decision log, a RAD log. In this case, that would be a job description, not an accomplishment. Unless there was an outcome because you used this log, all you're telling me is a job duty. And to be quite frank with you, employers aren't interested in you recreating what you've done. They want to know how you've increased revenue, reduced cost, or solved the problem. It's very simple. It goes back to value and what value has been created through the statements that I've just read. You can't find it. So therefore, I would say these are probably job duties. Now we're going to give the audience an opportunity, and I picked about 6 of these, and they should be relatively apparent. Pardon me. So I'm going to read, if you would, the first one, and I'm going to ask the audience in their chat to just identify accomplishment or activity. And we'll go through this relatively quickly because I see we're coming up on some time. The statement reads, prepared and delivered technical presentations explaining available products, technologies, and/or service options while assisting in the identification of optimal solutions for defined business objectives. Accomplishment or activity? Audience, please.
Looks like everyone's saying activity, duty, activity.
Well, let's see. Yep, that is correct. How about the next one? Established good working relationships with customers and clients. Is this an accomplishment or is this an activity?
Looks like a lot of activity and duty.
Does anybody think it's an accomplishment?
A lot of no's.
That's good.
One person put accomplishment.
Uh-oh. Get that person's name, Jim. We'll talk to them after the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, how about the next one? Initiated and implemented a strategy for consolidating computer operations from 3 centers to 2, saving over $200,000 without interrupting processing.
A lot of accomplishments.
Yeah. Are there any people that might think it's an activity?
Not, they're all putting accomplishments.
That's good. And again, the reason why it's an accomplishment, it talks about the size and the scope of the outcome. It talks about consolidating operation computer centers from 3 to 2, and of course, saving $200,000. It is an accomplishment. How about this next one? Designed and managed system integration testing for new ACH platform, resulting in no system issues and the successful processing of over 1,000 checks on a daily basis, valued at over $100,000 annually. Accomplishment or activity?
Looks like accomplishments.
Pretty much 100%, Jim?
Pretty much. That I see, yep.
That's great. How about the next one? Developed a roadmap for product improvement while producing logical, technical, and physical deployment models for call recording. Accomplishment or activity?
Duty, activity, duty, activity, duty, activity. Activity, activity, duty, activity.
It is an activity. Now, of course, the last one, manage a financial team of 5+ employees while reducing annual operating costs by $50K and improving payroll operating efficiencies by 12%. Accomplishment or activity. It's got dollars, it's got percentages. Don't be fooled.
They have accomplishments. One person put activity.
Uh-huh.
Accomplishments, accomplishments. Everyone's accomplishment except for one person. Okay.
All right, well, we got pretty much accomplishment. The percentages, while it's not as effective, the dollars and the employees demonstrate size and scope and give me a very quantitative figure. So everybody did pretty well. That's good. So everything that I've said so far is resonating. Accomplishment statement imperatives. And again, this is another way to think about your accomplishment statements. They should illustrate an outcome. They should reflect measurable results, demonstrate direct benefits, reflect size and scope, but most importantly, address that so what question. So what is so important to address. So here's what I'd like to do now. And again, this is going to require just a little bit more than a checkbox. I call this the resume remodeling exercise, or in some cases, SOAR, Statement of Accomplishment Revitalization, for this exercise. Meaningful accomplishments do get noticed. And again, as I said earlier, there are different ways to do that, good and better. Here is a good accomplishment statement. I led a cross-functional improvement team that created documentation standards, boosting resource utilization, and realized a 33% reduction in development time. That's okay, good. Here's a better one. I led a cross-functional team of 6 professionals in the design of new product development methodologies and process that resulted in a 33% in reduction in product commercialization, time saving company over $750,000. Much, much better, much more meaningful, which is probably the one that's going to get noticed. The one on the right. So that said, I'm going to ask the audience, and this will be a good test to see how many of you were listening to what accomplishments versus activities were. Here's the original accomplishment statement. I want you to write in the chat box how you might make it better. The original accomplishment is converted 850 enterprise employees to Office 365, reducing the cost of support for individual copies of MS Office. That was the original accomplishment statement. So audience, what would you add or delete to make this a better accomplishment statement that's more compelling? So you would type that in, doesn't have to be the whole statement. What would you add or to make it better? Let's see what you come up with. And then I'm going to share with you what was the actual statement.
The amount of money saved, cost, saving the company total of $425,000. How much money was saved, the figure of savings. Yeah, the cost of savings, yeah.
How about time involved, man hour, labor cost? Is that part of that, I suppose?
Now everyone was looking at saving the money.
Okay. Again, savings is just as important. Remember, make money, save money, solve problem. Let's see what the actual statement turned out to be, a revitalized statement. Converted 850 employers to use the cloud with Microsoft, reducing cost of support, saving the company $100,000, and increasing productivity efficiency by 35%. So we saved money, we showed the money, but more importantly, we improved productivity. What employer wouldn't be interested in improving productivity? I can't think of one. So again, you can see the difference between good and better. The goal is to make your accomplishment statements not just good, but to be the best they can be. We're going to do one more. This was the statement: coordinated 6 internal and external partners to successfully introduce the pharmaceutical Salesforce.com application into the patient relationship management system. What would you do, or what would you add, or what areas would you need to explore to make this better?
Adding improved processing time, cost savings, efficiency improvement, time savings, revenue boost, dollars saved, increased revenue, savings implementation, number of processes implemented over a period of how long, how fast was this accomplished, internal, external people, did it affect, efficiencies gained, go live time, money, manual processes, so what's the result?
You know what? All of those are extremely good. And the class gets an A. Here's what we ended up writing for this individual. Instead of coordinated, led, utilizing an action verb, a team of 6 internal, external partners that enabled the transfer of 8,000 patient records. That's what this did. 8,000 records from multiple databases in a 4-month period that delivered annualized operational savings of 175 grand. Everything that you said and that people were suggesting, by incorporating that into that accomplishment statement, doesn't it sound more compelling? You led a team, you transferred 8,000 records, which demonstrates the size and scope of the accomplishment. You did it in 4 months, and you saved $175,000. Pretty significant. Pretty significant. You know, in summary, I believe writing an achievement-based resume is a way to get noticed, to illustrate the value you can deliver, and truly create a point of competitive differentiation while securing your primary objective, which is getting the interview. Remember, that's all a resume is designed to do, to get noticed and to get you an interview. By writing an achievement-based resume, you will get noticed. But more importantly, you will stand out from all of the other folks that are just writing a resume describing their activities or job duties. So my last question to the group is, and you don't have to write this down in chat, does your current resume reflect and highlight your accomplishments or simply list your activities? You'll get noticed when you use an achievement-based resume. Questions and comments? I believe I've taken up enough of your time this morning. I hope that each and every one of you will look at your resumes and maybe with a new eye and a new view at what an achievement-based resume might look like and how you can make yours into one that's going to get noticed. Jim, I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
One is get good at writing accomplishment statements.
Okay, you kind of broke up. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
How do you get good at writing accomplishment statements?
Practice. I know it sounds very snarky, but really it just takes practice. And then after you write it, let someone else look at it and let them evaluate that. Let a friend, a colleague, someone in a networking group, ask their opinion. Does this sound compelling? But if you take some of the tips that were in this presentation, and oh, by the way, I will make this presentation available to anyone who wants it as a reference tool, but make a list, go through, use PAR to write those statements. Take the time to write that statement and then evaluate it with others. Let other people give you their opinion as it relates to, is it a compelling statement?
do you want to send me, or should I just have them contact you?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. How about this? They could just contact me and I'll make it easy for you, Jim.
All
I'll be
right.
happy to send a copy of this presentation and or information about the PATH group, because that's my shameless plug. If you would just go ahead and email me and just say, drop me your presentation, or I found your presentation to be good, bad, or it doesn't apply to me. Either way, I'd like to know what people think about it. And more importantly, I'd like to see how people change their resumes and get the results and see if they start getting the interviews.
Okay. And I did put Fred's email in the chat room. Okay. All righty.
Oh, here comes another shameless plug.
Uh-oh.
I just want to mention that the PATH group is featuring a renowned storyteller speaker in the greater Chicagoland area. Mr. James Fergal is going to be speaking at the PATH group meeting on the 23rd of March. You're all invited. If you're interested in attending, you've never attended before, or drop me an email, I'll be happy to put you on our mailing list. But he's going to be talking about how do you sell your value. So it really kind of segues well with the achievement-based resume in communicating your value. Jim's going to tell you how you can go about and selling it. So we look forward to Jim and speaking on the 23rd, and we hope you all can join us as well.
Yeah, I'm working on that, and well, you know, the resume is the start of it. This problem, action, result, your accomplishment statements are your stories in the interview. So we'll be talking about that and how you present it. And one final thing to go with writing these accomplishments is talk to people. I find when I ask, so what, as Fred was talking about, people start telling me, well, I led global teams on 4 different continents, or, you know, 12 people, you know, nationwide, or 6-state coverage. You know, you got to talk it out. You know, you can't assume Fred knows, I know, or the employer knows. So find someone, talk it out. Okay. I am going to wrap this up. And I am going to, okay. So here is the code for today. This is what you're going to use to email your counselor. Part of the grant is that you are going to have to contact with your counselor. It's CCABR312, and for some reason, it's not letting me get into chat. I don't know why. Okay. Jennifer Javon, if you could put this in the chat room. It's CC, Career Conversations, Achievement-Based Resume, ABR, today's date, 312. Okay. What do we have coming up? At the end of March, March 26th, we have opportunities in information technology. We have 3 employers coming in. I have one gentleman who's been in IT for over 30 years, has several companies going, and they're going to talk about what's happening in the marketplace as far as IT, what are the trends. April 9th, we are finalizing getting someone to present on the state of Illinois jobs. April 30th, we have opportunities in transportation, distribution, logistics. We have 3, maybe 4 employers that will come in. I will moderate, ask questions, and then each employer will talk about themselves as well as their company and the trends that they see and open opportunities. Again, let us know when you find a job. I really enjoy knowing that I've helped someone and to know that what we're doing here, you know, if you learned something from Fred, any of the speakers, anyone like that, and you tried some technique, I like to know that so that I can let other people know what works, what doesn't, what's happening in the marketplace, how many interviews did you go through. As I mentioned earlier, it also allows us to serve more of the public as we meet the different criteria that Congress sets for us. As I mentioned, 70% we keep the grants, 80% we serve more people. So the people who went before you are the ones who are keeping the grant going by letting us know when they get a job, the salary, and type of job. That's pretty much it. I am going to go back and put the thing up here. Fred, I appreciate it very much that you took the time today. Excellent.
Enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah. Let's see here.